I'm Rick, and this is Burn After Reading. For well over a decade, it's been widely believed that Terry Hobbs' DNA was found in one of the ligatures used to tie up one of the three boys in the murders of Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, and Michael Moore in May of 1993. Terry Hobbs was Stevie's stepfather. This has been a deceptive pro West Memphis 3 narrative that has gained momentous traction. The samples representing Terry Hobbs were not provided voluntarily. While that might seem suspicious on the surface, it's actually not. You see, the West Memphis 3 defense objective at the time were to free Damien Echols, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly from prison. One of the ways to do that is plant the seed of an alternative suspect. After all, before Terry became public enemy number one, Christopher's stepfather, John Mark Byers, was considered the one who done it by the pro West Memphis 3 base. The primary set used for comparison was derived from cigarette butts discarded in front of his house. Another sample was taken from a discarded Q-tip. Here is the video of Terry Hobbs discovering this DNA revelation when meeting with the West Memphis 3's private investigator, Ron Lax.
Well, I've got some more news for you.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah. There was a hair found in the ligatures that tied Michael Moore. The shoelaces.
The ropes?
Yeah.
Oh, shoelaces.
Yeah. That they have identified DNA on. We are asking everybody that was involved to submit a DNA sample that we got wrong. With the family, we want to eliminate everybody on the family. How do you feel about that?
Well, I would have to talk to Brett about this. I know this didn't happen back then, and I think I know why it didn't happen back then.
Why is that?
Because I was the first parent who made any phone calls and the first parent who started the first search. I was the only parent who showed up at the police department that night 3 different times, begging and asking for help, and they wouldn't give us the help that we was looking for. And I was the only parent who was threatened to be put in jail if I didn't quit going down there. So I could see why they wouldn't ask me of anything, because they felt bad how this thing turned out.
I thought they did get some hair samples from you.
I don't remember. And they can have all they want. I don't oppose to that. But yeah, I would want to talk to Brent about anything. But I even if he said do it, I'm not opposed to that. I ain't got nothing to hide.
Okay. Well, the attorneys that we are working for have asked if they ask us to talk with you again, and they want you to talk to this other guy, Rick Berry.
Rick Berry?
He's another investigator.
Mm-hmm.
You have a problem talking to him.
Who's Rick Berry?
He works for us out of our Nashville office, but he was a former homicide detective. Need paper?
Just need to write his name down.
Well, he's here.
Well, he's here. You're about to meet him. Mm-hmm.
And
Do you think that I should talk to Brett before this? Because, I know what's behind this and what's motivating this. And I don't know if I have any answer for Rick or not.
well, the DNA that was found in the hair doesn't match Damien or Jason or Jesse, and it doesn't match Michael or Stevie or Chris.
Mm-hmm.
So it's somebody else's DNA.
You don't know whose? Tell me.
Yours.
No.
Yes, it is.
That's wrong. So, okay. Knowing that and hearing that, that would put me on the suspect list. I don't see how.
That's what we want to eliminate.
I can eliminate it. sure don't understand how that would happen.
I don't either. We just received the results back. They got them back day before yesterday. They just called us with them yesterday morning.
And I spoke with Brent. It was Tuesday, Wednesday,
You did?
this past week, and I asked him about the evidence that come back. And he mentioned nothing about this.
He doesn't know it.
So when will he know it?
Probably the first of next week.
Well, that still doesn't bother me.
Yeah, we wanted to take your
The
DNA.
problem is, Terry, we know that when this does come out, it's going to turn your life even more upside down. You know it. And I know.
No, you might think that. I don't agree with that. Simply because I know my innocence.
So, after just watching that, keep something in mind. Terry wasn't talking to law enforcement in this meeting. He was talking to the West Memphis 3's private investigator, and I think Terry knew he was being ambushed. Terry had no problem submitting his DNA to law enforcement because he knows he's innocent. I know he's innocent. In fact, in 1993 and 1994, the prosecution DNA tested the evidence that they had against the family members of the victims, which included Terry Hobbs, who freely gave his DNA to be tested. He may have forgotten at the time of the meeting with Lax, it was a while ago, but at no time did Hobbs object, and his DNA is shown on this state crime lab report from 1994, having been given in October of 1993. Check it out yourself. It's in black and white. It's right there on the screen. But the pro-West Memphis 3 narrative goes like this, and I'm going to take some of this from the West Memphis 3 Revelations blog because it's brilliant. 3 men claiming to be wrongfully convicted have DNA tests run on the evidence in their case. The evidence doesn't match to any of them, but a single hair match to a stepfather of one of the victims is located. So this must mean that these men are innocent, referring to Damien, Jesse, and Jason. Well, not true. The answer is surprisingly not as simple as it would seem, and far more complicated. Despite that it has been all too often claimed that the DNA testings proved them innocent, it didn't actually exclude them. Now, I'm going to go more into that on Good Friday, March 29th at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time with my guest, Lisa O'Brien of the Based in Fact podcast on Burn After Reading Live. But let's get back to the hair found on the ligature, or in the ligature, although I don't know if any of that's been definitive of where that was found other than just on the ligature. When most people hear the word DNA, they assume that means something like blood or semen or saliva. That's considered nuclear DNA. The DNA that is supposed to be Terry Hobbs is mtDNA. It has a limited forensic value. While testing mtDNA, it can rule out a person. That test cannot definitively conclude it was one particular person. The mtDNA evidence against Terry Hobbs is actually pretty weak. And what? You don't believe me? Okay, fair enough. How about we hear it from the words of the West Memphis 3's own Thomas Fedor, forensic serologist hired by the West Memphis 3 defense team. Watch and listen for yourself.
Likelihood of hairs being transferred from a body, maybe I go into the woods and I have the hair on my body and it's transferred to a ligature like that. What's the possibility of that? That's what Mr. Hobbs says to us possibly happened and the reason that his hair appeared on the crime scene.
Possible that someone other than Mr. Hobbs delivered his hair, if it is his hair, to the scene. In the same way that it must be possible that Mr. Hobbs, if it was him, transferred David Jacoby's hair to the scene. Hairs that are acquired from somebody else that we don't grow ourselves simply adhere by static electricity to our clothing and they fall off from time to time. Things can speed up the transfer of hairs, things can slow down the transfer of hairs. Activity speeds it up, inactivity slows it down, that sort of thing.
So would it be unusual if somebody
Well,
that-
it's possible that his stepson legitimately carried Terry Hobbs's hair to that scene. It's certainly possible. It need not require Mr. Hobbs to be present, although on the other hand, it is possible that Mr. Hobbs and not his stepson brought that hair to the scene. There really isn't any way to be sure.
I'm going to direct this, I guess, to the DNA experts. Over a course of time, it seems that over and over again, it's been different family members who popped up as kind of being suspects in this case. And I haven't asked if you guys are simply just trying to prove that Damien and these other two boys did not do this, why there's so much focus on Terry Hobbs. Is there really significant enough DNA evidence that can point to Terry Hobbs, especially with the fact that the hair and the shoestring could have come from inside the house? There's been a lot of talk about. I'm just stressing some of the things I've heard from folks in the region who are familiar with the story. Is this evidence enough to say that Terry Hobbs could have really done this?
The two hairs that I know about, the one that could in fact come from Mr. Hobbs and the other one that could in fact have come from Mr. Jacoby, constitute what I call weak evidence, because there are other people it could have come from, and there isn't any way to improve our selection of possible sources for that hair. I don't think, my personal opinion is, I don't think that hair evidence would be enough to convict Mr. Hobbs or Mr. Jacoby or anybody in a similar situation, because it's simply not strong enough. The percentages that I gave of people who could be the source of those hairs are 1.5% of the population with respect to one hair, and 7% with respect to another hair. That's not particularly strong evidence, and especially in the context of what most people are accustomed to DNA testing. These odds are considerably weaker than what we'll call an STR DNA test that virtually provides identity.
So, if you listen to what Fedor said, the hair fragment is weak evidence because they can't definitively conclude it's Terry's hair. Yet, even if it was, it is clearly and most likely possible due to secondary transfer versus an actual crime. It transfers over to Stevie for many possible reasons, and it transfers over onto another item at the scene, be it Stevie's shoelace or another's. So, for those of you screaming that Terry Hobbs is the real killer because of a hair fragment that the West Memphis 3 PR team made seem to be definitive, do me a Texas-sized favor. Stop it. Also, do not backpedal now and say you didn't say that. Yeah, you did, and you look silly as fuck for saying it. Also consider this. According to case documents, there are additionally 26 other hairs found on the victims that could have originated from the biological parents and family members of the victims. The only reason Hobbs was singled out was because he was a step-parent and not biologically related, and as such could be shown that any hair that was attributed to him was not from one of the victims, and it makes it appear like he was the odd one out. I'm ending it here. But please, catch the Good Friday, March 29th Burn After Reading live at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Who knows? You might learn something. Until next time.
Motherfucker in this world could do it like me. Open up your eyes.